UPS driver Marcus Johnson thought he was just delivering daily medications to a forgetful elderly man. The same address, the same time, the same confused questions about what day it was. But when Marcus noticed that the man's golden retriever was doing something extraordinary, something that went far beyond normal pet behavior, he realized he wasn't witnessing forgetfulness. He was watching a four-legged caregiver performing miracles that most humans couldn't achieve. Welcome to Dog Vision TV. Before we dive into this incredible story of devotion, caregiving, and unconditional love, tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from today? And if you believe that some of the most important work in the world happens quietly, one delivery at a time, hit that subscribe button. This story will show you that heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear fur. Route 47 stretched through the Maplewood subdivision like a familiar song, each stop timed to the minute, each address memorized after 12 years of service. Marcus Johnson had been driving for UPS since he was 24, and at 36, he could navigate his delivery route blindfolded. He knew which houses had aggressive dogs, which customers were never home before 3 p.m., and which deliveries required an extra moment of patience. But 1247 Maple Street had become something different entirely. For the past 18 months, Marcus had delivered to that address every single weekday at exactly 2:15 p.m. Not packages from online shopping or business supplies, but the same pharmaceutical delivery from Westfield Pharmacy. A temperature-controlled bag containing what appeared to be daily medications for an elderly resident. The man who answered the door was Harold Chen, 78 years old, though Marcus had learned his name only from the delivery labels. Harold was always polite, always grateful, but there was something in his eyes that Marcus couldn't quite place, a confusion that seemed to deepen with each passing month. "Is it Tuesday?" Harold would ask, almost every day, regardless of what day it actually was. "It's Thursday, Mr. Chen," Marcus would reply gently, handing over the pharmaceutical bag. "Thursday," Harold would repeat, as if trying to anchor the word in his memory. "My wife used to love Thursdays." The conversation rarely varied, and Marcus had grown accustomed to the routine. What he hadn't grown accustomed to was Bailey, Harold's golden retriever, whose behavior had begun to capture Marcus's attention in ways he couldn't ignore. Bailey wasn't just any family pet. From the moment Marcus's brown delivery truck turned onto Maple Street, the dog seemed to know exactly when 2:15 p.m. approached. Marcus had started noticing Bailey's preparation ritual. The dog would position himself by the front window at 2:10, watch for the familiar brown vehicle, then move to the front door with a precision that reminded Marcus more of a trained professional than a household companion. But Bailey's role went far beyond greeting the delivery driver. When Harold came to the door, Bailey didn't just follow, he guided. The dog would position himself slightly ahead and to the right of Harold, creating a gentle physical boundary between the elderly man and any potential obstacles. If Harold seemed unsteady, Bailey would lean against his leg, providing support without being intrusive. Marcus noticed that Bailey never left Harold's side during these interactions. While most dogs would be distracted by the delivery truck, the neighborhood sounds, or Marcus himself, Bailey's attention remained laser-focused on Harold's needs and responses. "He's a good boy," Harold would say, reaching down to pat Bailey's head. But even this simple gesture revealed something remarkable. Bailey would anticipate Harold's movement, positioning himself perfectly, so Harold's hand would find him without fumbling. The dog seemed to understand Harold in ways that went beyond typical pet owner relationships. When Harold appeared confused about whether he'd already received his delivery that day, which happened frequently, Bailey would look toward the pharmaceutical bag, then back at Harold, as if providing a silent reminder. Most striking of all was what happened after Marcus left. Through his rearview mirror, Marcus had observed Bailey's post-delivery routine. The dog would wait until the truck was out of sight, then gently guide Harold back inside, always ensuring the front door was properly closed behind them. As weeks turned into months, Marcus began to understand that he was witnessing something far more complex than a simple daily delivery. Harold's questions were becoming more repetitive, his confusion more apparent. Some days he would ask Marcus if he was the mailman. Other days he'd thank him for bringing groceries that didn't exist, but Bailey's responses were becoming more sophisticated, more protective, more professional. The dog had developed what Marcus could only describe as a toolkit of interventions. When Harold seemed particularly disoriented, Bailey would perform a series of gentle nudges and repositioning that helped ground Harold in the present moment. If Harold started to wander during their brief conversation, Bailey would create a soft barrier, guiding him back toward the door. Marcus noticed that Bailey had learned to read Harold's emotional state with remarkable accuracy. On days when Harold seemed agitated or upset, the dog would remain closer, sometimes placing his head under Harold's hand, a gesture that invariably seemed to calm the elderly man. The delivery routine itself had become a carefully choreographed interaction, with Bailey serving as both participant and director. The dog would alert Harold to Marcus's arrival, guide him to the door, ensure the exchange happened safely, and then manage the transition back inside. What amazed Marcus most was Bailey's consistency, rain or shine. Whether Harold was having a good day or a difficult one, the dog never wavered in his attention or care. Bailey had essentially appointed himself as Harold's full-time caregiver, and he approached the role with a dedication that most professional caregivers would struggle to match. Marcus had delivered to hundreds of addresses over his career, but he'd never seen anything like the relationship between Harold and Bailey. It was as if the dog had recognized a need and had training himself to meet it, developing skills that went far beyond what anyone would expect from a family pet. The morning that changed Marcus's understanding of everything happened on a rainy Tuesday in October. Marcus arrived at 1247 Maple Street to find Harold standing in his front yard, still in his pajamas, looking confused and distressed. There was no sign of Bailey. Marcus parked his truck and approached carefully. "Mr. Chen, are you okay?" Harold looked at him with no recognition whatsoever. "I can't find my house," he said, his voice filled with panic. "I was looking for my house, but I can't remember which one it is." Marcus felt his heart sink. Harold was standing in front of his own home, but clearly didn't recognize it. This was beyond the confusion Marcus had observed before. This was something much more serious. "Let me help you," Marcus said gently, taking Harold's arm. "I think your house might be right here." Just then, Bailey came running around the side of the house, clearly agitated. The dog immediately positioned himself between Marcus and Harold, not aggressively, but protectively. Bailey began a series of behaviors Marcus had never seen before. He gently took Harold's pajama sleeve in his mouth and began leading him toward the front door, all while making soft sounds that seemed designed to comfort. As they reached the door, Bailey performed a remarkable sequence. He sat directly in front of the door, looked up at Harold, then used his nose to point toward the house number. Then he moved to Harold's side and gently guided the elderly man's hand to touch the numbers, 1247. "This is my house," Harold said, wonder in his voice. 1247. This is where I live. Bailey's tail wagged once, and he guided Harold inside. Marcus followed, concerned about leaving Harold alone in his current state. Inside the house, Marcus witnessed something that would stay with him forever. Bailey moved through a routine that was clearly practiced and purposeful. He led Harold to a kitchen chair, then brought him a specific pill organizer from the counter. The dog then moved to a cabinet, somehow managed to open it with his nose, and indicated a water glass. This wasn't random behavior. This was a trained caregiver routine, performed by a dog who had somehow learned to manage Harold's daily medical needs. "Mr. Chen," Marcus said carefully, "has Bailey been taking care of you?" Harold looked at Bailey with clear recognition. The first clear recognition Marcus had seen from him that day. "Bailey knows everything," Harold said. "He knows when I forget." Marcus realized he needed to understand more about what was happening. "Is there someone I should call? Family member? Doctor?" Harold looked confused again, but Bailey moved to a small desk in the living room. The dog pawed at a specific drawer until Marcus opened it. Inside was a folder labeled Medical Information and a list of emergency contacts. The first name on the list was Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, Harold's primary care physician. The second was Margaret Chen, listed as Harold's daughter, living in Seattle. Marcus called both numbers. Dr. Rodriguez's office confirmed what Marcus had begun to suspect. Harold had been diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's disease about 2 years ago. His medication delivery was part of a care plan designed to help him remain in his own home as long as possible. "Mr. Chen has been managing quite well with his daily routine," the nurse explained. "His daughter visits monthly, and we have a home health aide who checks on him twice a week. But honestly, his golden retriever has been doing remarkable work." The dog seems to understand Harold's needs better than most professional caregivers. When Marcus reached Margaret Chen, she began crying before he'd finished explaining the situation. "I've been so worried about leaving Dad alone," she said. "But Bailey has been incredible. That dog has learned to do things we never taught him. He reminds Dad to take his medications, helps him find his way around the house when he gets confused, and somehow knows when Dad is having a particularly difficult day." She explained that Bailey hadn't received any formal training as a service dog. He'd just started doing these things on his own as Dad's condition progressed. It's like he recognized that Dad needed help and decided to become whatever kind of helper was needed. Marcus learned that Bailey had developed an entire system of care. He would wake Harold at the same time each morning, guide him through his routine, ensure he ate breakfast, and even learn to alert neighbors if Harold seemed to be in distress. "The delivery routine with you has become one of Dad's anchor points," Margaret continued. "Bailey makes sure Dad is ready for your visit because it's one of the consistent parts of his day that helps him maintain some sense of normalcy." That afternoon, Marcus made a decision that would extend far beyond his job description. He arranged with his supervisor to adjust his route timing, ensuring he could spend a few extra minutes at 1247 Maple Street each day. What had started as a simple package delivery had become something much more important. A vital connection in Harold's care network. Over the following weeks, Marcus began to understand the full scope of Bailey's caregiving abilities. The dog had learned to recognize the early signs of Harold's confusion and provide grounding techniques, guide Harold through his daily medication routine, working in coordination with the delivered prescriptions, alert Harold to important appointments by becoming more insistent about routines on specific days, provide comfort during Harold's moments of distress about his condition. maintain Harold's safety by preventing him from wandering or leaving the house unsupervised. Bailey had essentially become a full-time, unpaid, professionally effective caregiver, providing services that would typically require multiple human professionals. Marcus started coordinating with Margaret and Dr. Rodriguez's office, serving as an additional set of eyes for Harold's care team. He would report any changes in Harold's condition or Bailey's behavior, helping the family and medical team adjust care plans as needed. "Bailey has given my father dignity," Margaret told Marcus during one of their phone conversations. "Instead of needing to move into assisted living immediately, Dad has been able to stay in his own home with his own routines because Bailey provides the support he needs while still allowing him independence." The pharmaceutical deliveries continued, but they had become so much more than medical supplies. They were opportunities for social connection, routine reinforcement, and collaborative care between a professional delivery driver, a trained medical dog, and an elderly man fighting to maintain his sense of self. Through his conversations with Harold's care team, Marcus learned about Alzheimer's disease in ways he'd never expected. He discovered that routine and familiarity were crucial for patients, that small changes could create significant distress, and that emotional support often mattered more than medical intervention. Bailey's intuitive understanding of these needs had allowed him to provide exactly the kind of support that Alzheimer's patients require most: consistent, patient, non-judgmental care that helps maintain dignity and independence for as long as possible. Dr. Rodriguez explained that what Bailey was doing naturally, providing routine, emotional support, physical guidance, and safety monitoring, were the same services provided by professionally trained Alzheimer's care dogs, which typically cost thousands of dollars and require months of specialized training. "Bailey has essentially trained himself to be a medical assistance dog," Dr. Rodriguez told Marcus. "His bond with Harold, combined with his natural intelligence and empathy, has created a care partnership that's more effective than what we'd see with many professional arrangements." Marcus learned that Alzheimer's affects more than 6 million Americans, and that the majority of patients desperately want to remain in their own homes for as long as possible. Bailey's care was making this possible for Harold in ways that traditional medical approaches often couldn't achieve. The story began attracting attention from the local Alzheimer's support community. Margaret shared Bailey's story at a family support group where other families dealing with similar challenges wanted to understand how pets might be integrated into care plans. Marcus found himself becoming an advocate not just for Harold and Bailey, but for the recognition of how animals could play vital roles in Alzheimer's care. His daily delivery route had become a window into possibilities that most people, including many medical professionals, had never considered. Word of Bailey's extraordinary caregiving spread beyond the immediate care team. UPS management, initially skeptical about Marcus spending extra time on a single delivery, became supportive when they understood the situation. The company featured Harold and Bailey's story in their Community Impact newsletter, highlighting how delivery drivers often become integral parts of the communities they serve. Other drivers on Marcus's team began paying closer attention to their elderly customers, watching for signs that additional support might be needed. The delivery company started informal partnerships with local senior services, helping identify residents who might benefit from additional care resources. The local Alzheimer's Association asked Margaret to speak at their annual conference about Bailey's care techniques. While they couldn't recommend that families expect their pets to develop Bailey's level of skills, they began incorporating information about animal companionship into their resource materials. Harold's story inspired research into how pets naturally develop caregiving behaviors for family members with dementia. A local university's veterinary behavior program began studying Bailey and other dogs who had assumed similar roles, hoping to understand how these natural instincts might be encouraged and supported. Most importantly, Harold continued to live in his own home, surrounded by familiar items and routines, with Bailey providing the safety and support that made independence possible. The daily medication deliveries continued to serve as anchor points in Harold's week, providing consistency and social connection that helped slow the isolation that often accompanies Alzheimer's progression. Marcus had become more than a delivery driver. He was part of a care team that included a dedicated family dog, a loving daughter, committed medical professionals, and a community that had learned to recognize and support extraordinary caregiving wherever it occurred. 2 years after Marcus first noticed Bailey's remarkable behavior, the daily delivery routine continued, though Harold's condition had progressed. Bailey's role had evolved as well, becoming even more sophisticated in his care techniques. The dog had learned to anticipate Harold's needs with even greater accuracy. On days when Harold was more confused, Bailey would provide additional guidance and comfort. When Harold had good days, Bailey seemed to understand this too, allowing more independence while still maintaining his protective presence. Margaret had moved back to Seattle after her father's diagnosis, but she visited monthly and coordinated closely with Marcus, Dr. Rodriguez, and a small network of neighbors who had become informal caregivers. Bailey remained the constant, the thread that held Harold's care system together. "Dad doesn't always remember who I am when I visit," Margaret shared with Marcus, "but he always remembers Bailey." Their bond has remained strong, even as other memories have faded. Bailey gives Dad something that no medication or therapy can provide: unconditional acceptance and constant companionship. Harold's vocabulary had diminished significantly, but his connection with Bailey remained clear. He would still reach for the dog when feeling anxious, still smile when Bailey performed his caregiving routines, still find comfort in the familiar presence that never judged, never grew impatient, never expected more than Harold could give. The pharmaceutical deliveries had evolved too. Marcus now coordinated with a home health aide who visited 3 times a week, ensuring that Harold's medications were properly managed and that Bailey's informal care supplemented, rather than replaced, professional medical support. Dr. Rodriguez continued to marvel at Bailey's intuitive understanding of Harold's needs. "I've seen professionally trained medical assistance dogs," she told Marcus. "Bailey provides the same level of care, but with an emotional connection that can't be trained or purchased. He's not just managing Harold's condition. He's preserving Harold's dignity and quality of life." Bailey's story had grown beyond a single address on Maple Street. The local Alzheimer's Association now included information about animal companionship in their family education programs, citing Harold and Bailey as an example of how pets could become integral parts of care planning. UPS had developed a program training drivers to recognize signs that elderly customers might need additional support, connecting them with local senior services when appropriate. Marcus became a trainer for this program, sharing the observation skills that had helped him recognize Harold's situation. Several families in the Alzheimer's support community had reported that their pets had begun developing similar caregiving behaviors after hearing Bailey's story. While not every dog would naturally develop Bailey's level of skills, the story had encouraged families to pay attention to their pets' responses to family members with dementia. A local veterinary college established a research program studying the natural caregiving behaviors of companion animals, particularly focusing on how dogs respond to owners with cognitive changes. Bailey became one of their study subjects, helping researchers understand how to encourage and support these natural instincts. Most importantly, Harold continued to live with dignity, surrounded by love from both human and canine caregivers. His story had become proof that Alzheimer's care could extend beyond traditional medical approaches, incorporating the natural healing power of animal companionship. Marcus's daily delivery route had taught him that sometimes the most important work happens at the intersections of professional duty and human compassion. His willingness to pay attention, to care beyond his job description, had helped create a support system that honored Harold's humanity while acknowledging the realities of his condition. Every weekday at 2:15 p.m., Marcus still pulls his brown UPS truck up to 1247 Maple Street. Harold still comes to the door, though he needs more support now. And Bailey still performs his caregiving routine with the same dedication he showed from the very beginning. What started as a simple pharmaceutical delivery had become a window into the extraordinary caregiving that happens quietly in homes across the country. Harold's journey with Alzheimer's continues, but he faces it with the support of a dog who appointed himself caregiver, a delivery driver who learned to see beyond his job description, and a community that recognized and honored exceptional devotion wherever it appeared. Bailey never received formal training as a medical assistance dog, never earned official recognition for his caregiving skills, never asked for anything more than the opportunity to care for Harold with dignity and consistency. But in his quiet, daily dedication, Bailey had redefined what caregiving could look like. He proved that sometimes the most effective medical support comes not from credentials or training, but from love that recognizes need and responds without being asked. Marcus had delivered thousands of packages over his career, but none had taught him more about service, commitment, and the power of paying attention to what really matters. Harold's story was a reminder that extraordinary care often happens in ordinary moments, provided by ordinary beings, whether human or canine, who choose to see beyond their expected roles. And every day at 2:15 p.m., that miracle continues, one delivery at a time, one moment of care at a time, proving that some of the most important work in the world happens quietly, consistently, and with a love that asked nothing in return. Bailey didn't need a medical degree to recognize that Harold needed a caregiver. He didn't need training to understand that consistency and patience were Harold's greatest needs. He simply saw someone he loved struggling with memory loss and appointed himself to help, one day at a time. Have you witnessed this kind of intuitive caregiving? A pet who seemed to understand exactly what a family member needed? A professional who went beyond their job description to provide crucial support? Share their story in the comments below. Subscribe to Dog Vision TV for more incredible stories of dogs who provide care, comfort, and support in ways that go far beyond what we expect from our four-legged companions. These everyday miracles remind us that some of the most important healing happens quietly, consistently, and with unconditional love. And remember, sometimes the most professional care comes from the most unprofessional caregivers. Sometimes the best medicine is simply being seen, understood, and cared for exactly as you are.